Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, we are concluding, I think, our series on past Ohio State eras and who we would like to add to this year's Ohio State football team from each of these coaching eras. We've done Cooper, we've done Tressel. So is this the Fickle show? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. This would be like an interstitial. This would be like a 2 minute episode where now we're gonna bypass the fickle year. My apologies, with all due respect. We are gonna move. What's the old saying? Like due to time constraints, we're moving forward in our
Action,
action.
yes.
We're gonna go to the Urban Meyer era, and we're gonna just if you could add somebody from the Urban Meyer era to this year's Ohio State team to ensure a national championship, who do you think that player would be? Go ahead and throw your thoughts in the comments. And as you're watching, if you're watching, go ahead and hit thumbs up right now and subscribe to the channel right now. Hit the bell to be notified right now. But Tom, who is your who? Because again, the Cooper era, there's an obvious answer. There was not an obvious answer necessarily for the both of us. There are obvious answers, but not just one sure same answer. Is there that same guy? I don't think there is one same sure answer for the Meyer era because of the level of talent of a lot of these players. So who is your first guy?
Yeah, I have three names sort of above, three names kind of grouped together at the top of my list. And I'm going to go with Joey Bosa first. And there's another defensive end we can talk about, but one of his years was not in the Urban Meyer era. His best year was not in the Urban Meyer era, so
Yeah.
that's what made me sort of decide on on Joey Bosa, where you feel pretty good about a lot of spots on this defense, but the defensive end spot opposite of Kenyatta Jackson is a little bit of a question. And you've got three real good choices there. There's another guy who shares Joey Bosa's last name who would be a pretty good choice there as well. But I'm going to go with the OG Big Bear Joey Bosa and throw it to you with a shrug emoji.
I I think Nick Bosa was the better player, but Joey Bosa was the more reliable player because he played. And so if you're going to guarantee that Nick Bosa is going to be healthy, I'll take Nick Bosa. But in this make believe world that we have, we can't just create willy nilly rules. So I have no problem with Joey Bosa, but yeah, for me, I'd go with Nick Bosa because he was always productive. Joey Bosa, like in 2015, there was a downturn in his numbers, but he was always good. Like, he was always great. He was great as a true freshman. I remember when they signed him and he was like 6'5", 265 or whatever, and people like, I guess he's going to be a defensive tackle because he's so big. And then his first practice, he's definitely not a defensive tackle. He's playing defensive end, and he was great. And then what? Adolphus Washington gets hurt that year, and he's like, I knew if I was ever going to play again, I had to move to tackle, based on Joey Bosa. So, yeah, I don't have those two guys are going to be the first two picks, I think. And I did have Chase Young on my list, but yes, you were right. His best year was in 2019, which would have been the Ryan Day era. So I feel like that would be cheating. How about, boy, the first name I put on here is Ryan Shazier, but I don't know that it works with this defense for the same reason we talked about Andy Katzenmoyer and AJ Hawk in the previous shows. But also, he played defensive end and edge in high school. So I feel like I'm not going to be asking him to necessarily set the edge. I'm going to be asking him to run around the edge and create and do some disrupting. He's just, if I have an opportunity to have him on my team, I want him on my team, and we'll figure the rest out later. I know Peyton Pierce is the middle linebacker, and that second linebacker needs to be doing multiple things, or there needs to be a third linebacker who can do that. But I'll go ahead and say Ryan Shazier just because he can do some different things, and I would love to see him in a Matt Patricia defense.
Yeah, I like that pick. He's someone who, if we're adding Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa and Chase Young to the defense, and we're also putting Shazier on the edge, we're going to run the first 8-0-3 defense in college football history. I'm not saying it wouldn't be effective. I'm just saying it might be a little, it's going to be a little unwieldy, but I think you could make it work. There's just I don't know that there's a wrong answer here out of all those guys, and I think Ryan Shazier would also hold up pretty well as a middle linebacker in this defense. So yeah, that's a good one. I'm a little surprised. I know running back isn't the biggest need, but I remember 2014, and I remember a gentleman wearing number 15 having some pretty big plays, being able to get the tough yardage and short yardage, but also, Tony, being able to go, I don't know, 85 yards or so when you absolutely needed a breakaway play. And for an Ohio State team that struggled a little bit in short yardage last year, and an Ohio State team that struggled a little bit with generating big plays on the ground, I feel like an Ezekiel Elliott might not be a bad addition this year.
I wrote down 11 names, and I'll admit I did not put Ezekiel Elliott down, not because I don't think he belongs here. I just missed it, and that's partly my fault. But boy, Ezekiel
Who else's
Elliott.
fault would you say that it was?
Look, the NCAA for trying to victimize me because I missed a name.
All right, that's fair, acceptable.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, that's, boy, I'm almost so embarrassed that I will go ahead and cut this out of the show. No, I won't do that. Too much editing. That one, yeah, go ahead. Again, I don't care how deep your running back room is. I did put J.K. Dobbins on this list, but also his best year was in 2019, which would have been, but he was also really good as a true freshman, averaging 7 yards a carry. This is not my fault, Tom, because I wasn't really thinking about the running backs because I think they're okay.
Yeah.
So I just, kind of ignored that. Didn't really think about the quarterbacks either.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that any of I guess you could throw in Dwayne Haskins at quarterback as a pick and be pretty okay with that. What about, you mentioned this 803 defense. I think you can do that if you've got Malik Hooker as one of those ones in the three where, and even realistically in this defense, when you've got so many moving parts and you want Jalen McClain to do something and you want Earl Little to do something, if you've got Malik Hooker as the back line, can go from sideline to sideline in the air when the ball's in the air, like do whatever you want. Those 10 guys will do whatever they want. I'll be okay with Malik Hooker covering everything else and just making sure that his corners have help or that he can get somewhere. And he was also a hell of a tackler in the box as well.
Yeah, he's sort of a little bit in that Orlando Pace group where I don't care how good your safeties are. You go ahead and you put him on your team because he had, 7 interceptions and 3 pick sixes in one season and had another one called back on a penalty. Yeah, if you can add 3 pick sixes to your team, you go ahead and you do that. That feels like a pretty easy decision, even though that is a position of luxury, not a position of need. But yes, you go ahead and do that. We've talked on the previous couple shows about you'd like to have something of a sure thing at Z receiver. Tony, was there ever a more sure thing at Z receiver than Devin Smith?
Ooh.
It's not the biggest name. It's not the most exciting name. But just in terms of what position are you trying to fill, and who do you think of when you think of a Z receiver at Ohio State? I feel like I could see Devin Smith running deep under some Julian Sayin passes and doing some. I don't think they ever lost when he caught a touchdown, so I would simply throw him a touchdown every game and go undefeated.
That's a good one. I did not have him on my list because I had Terry McLaurin because I was trying to think, well, who's a good Z receiver? And because I also had Curtis Samuel on the list, but that's a completely different thing. Because the way they talk about wanting to be able to use some of these slot guys now, it's like, well, Curtis Samuel, he'd be able to do that. But the Devin Smith works perfectly, kind of like what we talked about with the Ted Ginn thing earlier, where you have to respect him. That the safety does not respect it, then fine. If you want to if you want to bracket Jeremiah Smith and leave Devin Smith one-on-one, that's fine. Then you'll just 60-yard touchdown after 60-yard touchdown. Have great job, good defense. But that's a good one. Like I said, I went Terry McLaurin, but even in 2018, it was still only 35 catches. But also, that's basically what Devin Smith had. He was just averaging 26 yards a catch while doing it. So I think either of those guys would be solid additions. What about Draymond Jones, who was really disruptive as a redshirt freshman, very good as a redshirt sophomore, as that 3-tech. I'm not giving up on Edric Houston, but I guess if you're adding Draymond Jones, you're adding depth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's a disruptor, and I think that helps the defense out, helps everybody out. If you've got somebody on the inside that can just create havoc, but it's got to be the Draymond Jones that was creating havoc, I think, in the 2016 as a redshirt freshman. And because he was really good. He had a bunch of tackles in the second half of the season, and is still doing it today. But I think he's one of the more underrated guys over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I feel like you could have, everyone talks about the Bosa's and talks about Chase Young, and you'll talk about other guys on the defensive line. But yeah, I go back to just when it was like Tyquan Lewis and Jalen Holmes and Draymond Jones, and that feels like a really, really slept on part of Ohio State defensive line history. That was a group of players that really doesn't get talked about a lot, but was really, really good when they were at Ohio State. And yeah, Jones was really disruptive in the middle of the line. He would have his tackles for loss, and okay, that's sort of what you expect. But he had a pick six at one point. That was against TCU. He had a pick six. I mean, he was someone who would just sort of make a lot of plays. It's very disruptive. So yeah, I think that's a good one. This is another position where it's definitely not a position of need, but I kind of want to watch Cardale Jones running the Ryan Day offense. I mean, and I say that, and I'm thinking Cardale Jones throwing to Devin Smith, but I'm also thinking about Cardale Jones just kind of running up the middle and running over an Alabama safety and going, you know how Ohio State talks about wanting to have a running quarterback and not needing a quarterback who runs a ton, but someone who has the threat of the run. Cardale Jones was a threatening runner when he was running the ball, but he could also sling the ball around a little bit. Again, this is not a position where it's any kind of a position of need, and this is not also someone who is, an Orlando Pace type where it's like, well, you have to have that guy. This is just kind of like sheer curiosity. Like JT Barrett in this offense would be interesting. You want the threat of the quarterback run, like JT Barrett would certainly do that. But man, I kind of want to watch Cardale Jones in a Ryan Day offense and see what that looks like.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the running and the running over and those sorts of things, and the picking up of the first downs on quarterback sneaks. Should you still choose to do those things, or would you just go with the quarterback power because you like your chances? I don't hate that one. My last one here, and I should also mention John Simon was like the first player that I wrote, or the second player that I wrote down. Then I just kept getting further and further into the defensive end history. The 13, 14, 15, and you get the Bosa's in there, and it's like, well, John Simon kind of takes a back seat to those guys, but he was outstanding in his day. Von Bell, somewhere in the secondary, whether it's nickel, strong safety, whatever, knows for the football, very good tackler, just somebody who can be disruptive and can play the slot, can do different things. I think he would be. Do they need him? You would hope not if you're Ohio State because you like everything you've gotten, but all of that is unproven to this point. Von Bell to me is proven. I think he would be a good add.
Yeah, Von Bell would be a good addition. He was just someone who was just very reliable, very athletic. We talked on the last show about Mike Doss and how would he translate to the modern game. I don't have any questions like that about Von Bell. I think he would be a good one. I was thinking about offensive linemen, and Taylor Decker is the guy who probably has the highest. I think he got picked the highest of any of the offensive linemen of the Urban Meyer era. So you could certainly add him. Again, I feel reasonably confident about the offensive line on the whole. I was also thinking about like a Billy Price or a Pat Elflein, and you put him at center and you move Carson Hintzman over to guard. Because did both of those guys win the Remington Award? At least one.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think they both did. So, if you can add a Remington Award winner, sure, why not? You would probably do that. But yeah, I don't think that the offensive line is a position of real need necessarily, and I don't think any of those guys are absolute no-brainers. But I think that's certainly a couple names that are worth at least mentioning.
I think Billy Price did. I think Pat Elflein may have been at school at the same time as like a Minnesota Greg Enslinger, and maybe it was like Enslinger got all of the awards at that point. But yeah, either of those guys, go ahead and plug them into the interior, and I think you're going to be okay there.
Just pulling it up, yes, Pat Elflein in 2016 and Billy Price in 2017, back-to-back years. So yes,
there you go. I was right.
They they did win, and yes, no Minnesota player, Tony, other than Greg Enslinger, who you only missed by a decade. 2005 Remington Award winner. So we're going to give you partial credit. He did win it. He did play at Minnesota. You were only off by a little over a decade.
And it cost Ohio State an award at that point. Nick Mangold.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. See, it's all up here. It's just scattered, and it's like it's
scattered,
on top
smothered,
of other
and covered
stuff.
in Tony's brain.
You know
Absolutely.
There you go. So you've gotten our thoughts. You all have our thoughts on who we would add from the Urban Meyer era. Who would you add? And again, if you say Chase Young, it's got to be 2018 Chase Young. We're not going to allow 2019 Chase Young. You're breaking the rules. We do not allow that unless, of course, you get an injunction. So go ahead and throw your comments in there. We'd love to see them if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up if you've not yet done so. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified. Audio side, good reviews, always appreciated. Subscribe to Buckeye Weekly if you have not yet done so. Subscribe to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning if you've not yet done so. And, of course, the new show that Chuck and I launched, the Time and Change Will Surely Show. We're going to be recording another one here this week talking about linebackers and Ohio State's average history at linebacker. No big deal, just a bunch of linebacker talk and how things are going moving forward with James Laurinaitis as a very talented recruiter. So all of that coming. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.